Welcome back to Leliria Speaks. Let's get started. The sun was only just beginning to rise over Ponyville, mist still drifting along the ground in the pre-dawn light, when Ditsy Doo opened her door and stepped out onto the small porch. Her mane was even more tangled mess than usual. Her her postmare cap sat crooked atop that mane, slowly sliding down to one side in an endeavor to escape its intended purpose, and perhaps seek out a new life of its own, unbound by the preconceived notion of pony society tourist clothing accessories, or considering what she was yawning and rubbing her eyes. She may have simply not slept well and neglected to wear it in a secure and stable fashion. In truth, Ditsy's morning had been far from pleasant. Her daughter had gone to her first sleepover, and motherly concerns had kept her sleep from being properly restful the entire night. The brief sensation of dread felt by the single mother waking up to an empty house had helped nothing. And then, no matter how hard she searched the kitchen, she couldn't find nothing she might want to eat for breakfast. Certainly, there were worse things. She had far more terrible experiences in her life than a tired, hungry morning. Things the average citizen of Ponyville would never have guessed about the pleasant, if somewhat simple-minded and easily confused male mare. She didn't talk about those things. Besides, the topic were far too grim and tragic for the story as silly as this one. For as Ditsy took her first step from her door, she felt the hoof bump against something. Looking down, she was surprised to discover a small cardboard box, stamps and shipping label pasted to one side. The label had gotten wet at some point during the night, and the only legible portion was the 2 that ended in her name. Ditsy had no idea how the box had come to be there, and could not have been delivered with the mail, because she was the one who did that, and she didn't even start her rounds yet. Even if it had come yesterday, she didn't leave the packages sitting out on the porch overnight, even if the postal regulations said it was allowed. Plus, she was fairly certain that she remembered delivering a package to her own house. She knelt down slightly to sniff the package, and her eyes widened. It smelled like breakfast. So long as by breakfast you mean muffins, which comprised the majority of the short list foods that Ditsy liked. It wouldn't do to leave the food sitting out, and after all, no pony was ever really all that upset when she ran a little late on her rounds. Happily, she picked up the box and dismissed what sounded like a tiny voice as just one of those things that happen to her sometimes, brought it into the kitchen. Placing it on the table, she opened the box to reveal a brown muffin sitting in the exact center of it, surprisingly appearing to be undisturbed despite its trip through the mail. Her own over-eager handling of the box, the muffins seemed to be some sort of brand variety, which weren't her favorite. But muffins were good on principle, and she was quite hungry after all. She studied it for a moment, and then shrugged, stretching towards it and opening her mouth to take the first bite when,
"Are you gonna eat me?"
asked a bubbly foil-like voice right from under her nose. Ditsy froze and glanced downwards. The muffin was now standing on a pair of tiny legs, resting on a pair of tiny hands on the lip of the box, and looking up at her with bright, cheery eyes and a wide smile on his face. She stared at it. She closed her eyes and mentally counted to 4, which may not have seemed very long, but she was prone to getting off track. For her, reaching 4, it usually takes about the same amount of time as reaching 10 did for an average pony. She opened her eyes again. The muffin was still watching her. She closed one eye and looked at it for a moment. Then she opened that eye and closed the other, and then turned her head a bit to bring it now open but difficult to aim eye to bear on it. It was still there. She opened both her eyes and began on the next problem, how to respond to it.
Are you?
The chipper voice Muffin pressed her. It sounded like a colt, maybe one even younger than Dinky. Ditsy maintained her strict rule of being honest with children, and that had produced a few awkward conversations in regards to Ditsy's attempt to re-enter a dating scene. But on the whole, it was the point she was dedicated to and proud of. On the other hoof, there was something you just don't want to admit. No, she said cautiously.
Aww.
The muffin responded, not one ounce of cheer leaving its voice.
But I want to die.
Creepy. Ditsy stared at it for a moment. Why do you want to?
Do you like muffins?
It asked, grinning and bouncing a bit in the box as it did. Ditsy kept her mouth shut and just nodded.
Then why won't you let me die?
It demanded cheerfully, smile never leaving its face. Because eating you would be wrong, she offered.
But I'm a muffin,
It said brightly.
and I want to die.
Ditsy stared at it a moment longer, then pushed the lid on the box closed again, despite the happy cry of
Somebody kill me.
from within as she did. She knew who to ask about this. You're all probably wondering why I called you here, Twilight said as she assembled friends who sat around the crystalline table of her new castle. Rarity nodded. Sorry, dear, but Spike wasn't very clear about the problem. Yeah, Applejack said. He just told me something about talking food, but that doesn't sound like something you need all of us here for. Is that what you said? Rainbow Dash asked with a yawn. I thought we were all getting together for lunch, if something. You know, you follow along a lot better if you didn't sleep half the day in my trees. I just came up with Rarity, Fluttershy said, glancing between the others. I don't know what's going on. Sorry. Muffin party, Pinkie Pie asked. I heard muffin party. Did some pony say muffin party? Ditsy asked, popping up at the table between Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie. I did say muffin party, Pinkie said. Are we having a muffin party? Ditsy asked. And why is Derpy here anyway? Dash asked before Pinkie could continue her back and forth with the other Pegasus. Ditsy, Rarity said. What? Rainbow Dash asked. Yeah, Ditsy said at the same time. No, I mean her name is Ditsy, Rarity said, waving a hoof as if to ward off the confusion. Honestly, Rainbow Dash, you've lived just down this road from her for years now? At least you could do is learn her name. That is my name, Ditsy said with a smile. And she said it was her name, Dash argued. I think she meant girls, Twilight shouted, interrupting Rarity and pushing herself upright. We're getting off topic. Ditsy, bring out the box. Ooh, ominous name. It gives me shivers, Pinky said, giving her a visible shake as Ditsy left a cardboard box on the table. Her face fell, however, as Ditsy dropped the box. A plain brown muffin rolled out. Bit of a letdown on the reveal, though. And then the muffin hopped up and threw its arms into the air.
It's muffin time!
It cried joyfully. What? Said Applejack, Rainbow Dash, and Rarity. Pinkie Pie smiled back at it. Fluttershy ducked under the table at the unexpected noise, and Twilight sighed and held her hoof over her eyes at her friends' reactions. Hi, Mr. Muffin, Pinkie said to it.
Hi!
It chirped back.
Are you gonna eat me?
Maybe, said Pinkie, but I think I'd rather be friends instead.
Oh, but I wanna die,
said the Muffin with glee. So what's stopping you? Dash asked. Rainbow Dash, Applejack spun to face her friend. You can't just say that sort of thing. Why not? Dash turned to her and shrugged. If any pony gets to choose when you die, shouldn't the choice be yours?
I do wanna die,
the Muffin happily added. It ain't like dying only affects you and you alone. It hits every pony around you. I ought to know. Well, yeah, but that's between you and them. I don't know this guy or Muffin or whatever. Who am I to tell him what to do with his life?
I want to spend my life getting eaten,
the Muffin said with a smile,
and then dying.
Okay, this will be easier without interruptions. Twilight lifted the muffin with her magic and placed it back into the box.
No!
The Muffin cried, joy still bubbling in his voice.
You were supposed to eat me!
Ditsy, put this in the kitchen for me, please. She passed the box over to Ditsy, who took off down the hall, declaring her arrival in the kitchen with a loud crash. Twilight sighed again. And then turned back to her friends. Okay, girls, how about the rest of you? Well, Rarity sucked in the air between her teeth, hesitantly on her answer. I suppose Rainbow Dash has a point, doesn't she? Rarity, Applejack shouted. I expected more sense coming from you. Calm down, darling. I'm not suggesting that we just abandon a pony to their own devices when they express the feelings like that. It will go against everything we've all stood for if we fail to do everything in our power to help a pony going through such an awful time. However, I agree with Rainbow. If, despite our efforts, that pony still wishes to, well, depart, we have no right to force their hoof otherwise. Yeah, I see, Rainbow said. My point exactly. Applejack just groaned. I can't believe the two of you. Fluttershy, please tell me you ain't going to go along with this. Fluttershy, only just having to come back from beneath the table, started and shifted lower in her chair. Well, I hate to see any pony hurt themselves. I think it would be best if we just made sure they were all right. If they're okay with that, I mean. Applejack nodded. Thank you. I was afraid I was alone on this one. How about you, Twi? Twilight looked between her friends. So wait, Applejack and Fluttershy think the best thing is to preserve life in any way? Both ponies nodded. But Rainbow Dash and Rarity think personal freedom is more important, she continued. The second pair also nodded. I can't decide. That's the whole reason why I called you here. Twilight pressed her four hooves to her temple and put her head down on the table. At a moment, she raised her head. Willing to be the tiebreaker, Pinkie? Pinky shrugged and kept playing with a colorful cube that she was twisting between her hooves. I'd rather just make friends with them and hope that makes it better. Plus, we're way not qualified to answer stuff like this. We're just your friends, not ethicomologists or whatever. Ethicomologists? Is that a word? Ethics, Twilight corrected. But it still means we're still undecided, and I can't make a decision on this big by myself. She glanced over at Spike, who sat in the corner reading the comic books. Hey, Spike, do you think over my head? He said, flipping to the next page of his comics without even looking up. Ugh, she said, and she put her head back down. Hey, Spike, why not eat it yourself? Rainbow Dash asked. You like eating everything. Nope, he said, still not looking up. Too weird. If you're so keen on some pony eating it, why not do it yourself? Applejack asked. Ooh, no. Dash stuck out her tongue. That thing looked like a bran muffin. Those are gross. Chocolate and flaxseed, Pinky said, having replaced her cube with a slinky. Even worse, Dash said. Hey, why not have Discord turn it into a non-talking muffin and then let some pony eat it? That wouldn't solve the problem, Rainbow, Rarity said. And well, Fluttershy, I think that would set a bad precedent for him, Fluttershy said, looking stricken. A very bad precedent. Girls, look, we need to figure this out, Twilight said. Now that I am the princess with the castle and everything, my decisions carry weight. We could be setting legal precedent right here. From down the hall, a faint yet cheerful cry of
Yay! At last!
echoed from the general direction of the kitchen. All of the 6 gathered ponies looked up and then rushed toward the source of the noise. Well, for most of them, rushed towards the noise. Pinkie Pie mostly bounced along at the rear of the group, uninterested in the actual matter at hand, but sticking by her friends regardlessly. When they got to the kitchen, they found Ditzy sitting on the floor and an empty box between her hooves and crumbs surrounding her. She looked up, guilt all over her face. I'm sorry, Princess Twilight, but I was really hungry. Twilight worked her jaw, but no noise came out. And on the other hoof, there were 4 sighs of relief from behind her. Oh, thank goodness. That's all taken care of, Rarity said. Yeah, we couldn't have been here all day, said Dash, heading back down the hall. Yep, I got some apples that need taken care of, and this was running longer than I figured on, said Applejack as she caught up with the Pegasus. I'm just glad we didn't have to make such an awful decision, said Fluttershy, again trailing along behind the group. Girls, wait! Twilight called out, trotting up behind them. We didn't solve anything yet. All we did was put the decision off until later. What if it comes up again? The other 4 looked between one another, and Rarity turned back. Honestly, Twilight, that's all perfectly fine with us. After all, it wasn't exactly something that any of us were prepared to answer, nor was it anything we felt qualified to do. Besides, we live next to Everfree Forest. Any pony really wants to end his or her life. They have a multitude of ways to go about it without needing any pony's else input. They started off again, discussing each other's plans for the day, while Twilight just sat there stunned at the answer. At the moment, she stood there and stumped towards the room where they all met. Spike, let her! Back in the kitchen, Pinky sat down beside Ditsy. So how was it? Not very good, Ditsy sighed. If I knew it was flaxseed, I wouldn't have bothered the princess about it at all. Okay, it's okay, Ditsy, Pinkie Pie said, putting a hoof across her withers. I know what'll turn that frown upside down. You and me have a muffin party today. With that, Ditsy's face broke out with a wide smile, and she leapt to her hooves. Muffin party! Wait, what's a muffin party like? Oh, I don't know. I've never had one before. She gave Ditsy another pat on the back. But that just means we get to make it any kind of party we want. Hooray, muffin parties, Ditsy cheered, and the two trotted off into the sunset. Except it was only just a little past noon, so instead of a sunset, they trotted off to Sugar Cube Corner for lunch, after which they went by the post office so Pinky could help Ditsy with her now extremely late deliveries. The details of the muffin party are left to the reader's imagination. And then they just all left. Your faithful frustrated student Strike, fellow princess, Twilight Sparkle. Celestia chuckled as she passed the scroll to Luna as she sipped her tea. What has the young Twilight written of today, sister? Luna asked, taking the scroll in her own magic. It seems she inadvertently held her first court, Celestia replied with a smile after setting down her tea. It went well, as they ever do, I gather. A smirk was forming on Luna's own face as she read with the angry rant that had come to them via Dragonfire. How do you plan on advising her on this matter? I'm certain I can think of something, Celestia said, taking up a scroll and quill in her aura. Dear Twilight, welcome to politics. You have my condolences. Your friend, Celestia. Well, readers, that was a strange story. I don't think I could have eaten a muffin that was alive, but it seems Ditsy was able to do so. And no one seemed to care except for Twilight. And it doesn't look like Celestia even cares either. And she said, welcome. That's what politics means, even in real life. Well, friends, thank you for allowing me to read to you today. And I'll be back Monday. Enjoy your weekend. Good night and goodbye.